This is the day 2 session number 3. And the topic of this session is chronic hepatitis B and C, what new drugs on the block. And the speaker is very renowned, Dr. Naveen Mittal. He is working at the USA and he is trained in pediatric gastroenterology at Bristol Royal Hospital, Bristol and University of Chicago Hospital, Chicago. He is also an American board certified in pediatric gastroenterology and liver transplant. He is worked at Greeley Family Foundation, endowed chair in pediatric gastroenterology, professor of pediatrics at University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. He is a medical director, University Health System liver transplant program at San Antonio. His expertise in pediatric liver transplantation, hepatology, intestinal rehabilitation, and GI organs transplantation. He has done over 90% publication in international journals and reference books. And he is a well-known researcher, teacher, and eminent speaker at various international meetings. So I request to Dr. Naveen Mittal to share their presentation, and we will definitely get a lot of benefits from his presentation on chronic hepatitis B and C. Sir.
Good morning, my Indian colleagues. Job given to me is to discuss new drugs for treatment of chronic hepatitis B and C in children. I would like to share relevant information of hepatitis B and hepatitis C to better understand the roles of newly approved drugs. There are a lot of exciting news of new drugs available in last decade for these two diseases. I would briefly discuss ongoing challenges, unmet needs, and directions for future. I participated in Gilead initiated trials of Harvoni in children and currently participating in an active study trial of tenofovir prodrug for hepatitis B in children. Hepatitis B, as you all know, is a DNA virus widely distributed across the globe, with most cases originating in Asia. Most children acquire it from mother vertically. Horizontal transmission due to parental transmission like IV drug use, sex is less common. In USA, where I practice, most cases are seen in the immigrant population or children adopted from Asia or Russia. This virus causes injury to liver when the host immunity tries to clear the virus from hepatocytes. Virus itself causes little injury to the host hepatocytes. The natural course is after vertical transmission in the newborn, the newborn immunity is weak. Hepatitis E antigen transferred is acting as a toleranogen, and thus most newborns and infants will not manifest liver injury, and transaminases in this population would be mostly normal, despite very high replication rates of the virus. At certain time point, immunity picks up the fight and in attempt to clear virus, targets host liver cells. That is when liver enzymes go up and we have the best chance to treat it. That is the window of opportunity, immune clearance state. Either natural immunity or after treatment, the patient will become HBe antigen negative, will develop HBe antibody. That is what is the seroconversion and the goal of most of the drug trials. Down the road, these carrier states, patients with this carrier state have less risk of cirrhosis or hepatocellular carcinoma, but stay at risk of reactivation if immunity is weakened due to chemotherapy, biologics, or naturally. Most children are asymptomatic, develop cirrhosis quite very rarely. If left to nature, the seroconversion is possible as shown in this slide, but after multiple episodes of transaminitis, liver injury, and thus they are at higher risk of cirrhosis and hepatocellular carcinoma. With drugs, we aim for early seroconversion to reduce. We cannot eliminate as the viral DNA is integrated in host DNA. But yes, we can reduce the risk of such complications. Very first oral antiviral drug to be approved in USA was lamivudine in 2002, almost 20 years ago. After an international trial that showed very marginal increase in seroconversion rate at the cost of increasing YMDD resistant mutants with that medication. So there was ongoing search for a better drug, and after successful trial in adults, first adibofir and tenofovir were tested in children and got FDA approval in 2012. This table summarizes the role in different age groups of various FDA-approved drugs. It shows the duration of therapy, side effects of what is currently approved. So what are the unmet needs for hepatitis B after all these improvements in toolbox we have to treat it? One of the unmet needs is the side effect of those medications, and tenofovir, highly effective, still has a significant renal side effect. We are currently in our center enrolling patients in tenofovir prodrug trial that is supposed to be less nephrotoxic. The other big problem is to treat the patients in immunotolerant phase. The current therapies, as I told you before, only work in that narrow window of opportunity with the immunoclearance phase. There are certain approaches. I like that Indian approach shown by Dr. Podar, Dr. Yacha way back about 10, 12 years ago, where they used sequentially lamivudine followed by lamivudine and interferon after 8 weeks of therapy and had good outcomes. Moving on, let's talk about hepatitis C. Unlike the hepatitis B, it's an RNA virus, widely distributed. And even in USA, we have 3 to 5 million cases, and we see more hepatitis C than hepatitis B here. Most children acquire it vertically like hepatitis B, but teens also can get it with IV drug use or through sexual practices. Most children are asymptomatic and are usually picked on screening as the mother is tested positive during pregnancy or may have mild transaminitis. Cirrhosis and hepatocellular carcinoma is very rare, though it has been reported in pediatric age group. Exciting news is that there are a lot of new, highly effective, safe, direct antiviral agents available. They have been tested and approved in last 5 years, so that a cure or eradication, ambitious goal of WHO by 2030, is not out of reach. This slide shows targets of direct and acting antivirals. Most regimens to treat use combination of two drugs targeting 2 different sites in this possible list of targets. Natural course is that after acquiring vertically, the HCV RNA is testable after 2 months of age, and as the maternal antibodies are present in first up to 18 months of age, it becomes very hard to use that as a confirmation of diagnostic test. Over time, infant antibodies are wrapping up while the maternal antibodies are weaning down by 18 months of age. So somewhere after 18 months of age, a positive antibody test may be far more indicative of hepatitis C transmission. If one has to do something earlier than 18 months, hepatitis C RNA titers may help in confirming the diagnosis. Once acquired, the newborns may show some mild transaminitis at erratic intervals, and often 25 to 50% may resolve or have spontaneous resolution as the immunity matures by age 3. After that age of 3 cutoff, the spontaneous resolution is less frequent. There are also papers that show that the stigma of hepatitis C in children takes a toll on the child, psychological, emotional health, and family that is beyond the liver injury, that further justifies need to treat this age group, although the liver is not significantly affected. In the drug trials, the goal of therapy is SVR12, sustained viral response at 12 weeks post-therapy. Other terms used are rapid viral resolution, which is within 4 weeks, or end of therapy viral response, that's to see how the virus counts are at the end of 8 or 12 weeks of therapy. It's very important for hepatitis C therapy that one has baseline RNA titers and also know the genotype, as genotype information is important for response to the therapy. It is harder to treat genotype 2 and 3, and in early trials, ribavirin was added for genotype 2 and 3 therapies. Those who have cirrhosis, although it's rare in children, may need longer course. HIV co-infection is not being fully characterized in pediatric population. Hepatitis B reactivation is a risk, so one has to test it before starting the therapy. Ledipasvir sofosbuvir, known as Harvoni, was the first to be tested in multi-center trial, and our center participated in it, that led to approval of its use in first cohort of 12 to 17 age group, then 6 to 12, and most recently more than 3 years old. In this multi-center trial, genotypes 2 and 3 needed addition of ribavirin, and this slide shows the various pathways these subjects were subjected to for various genotypes. This next few slides are for those who want details about this Harvoni drug trials in various age groups for various genotypes. The last one in this series was in 3 to 6 years old, and our center participated in it. So I can share more data about it, but essentially the study design was very similar to other cohorts, and those who were enrolled, almost 100% cleared their virus, so it's highly effective in that age group with minimal side effects. Another wave of new drugs was started with the efficacy of Epclusa, combination of sofosbuvir, valpartasvir in pediatric patients. It is now kind of overtaken by DORA trial 1 and now part 2, which has tested glecaprevir and pibrentasvir in children. And the last one, last news is in June 2021 that it has been approved, this combination known as Mirvet here for age group 3 and above. And this drug combination was also highly effective and had minimal side effects. And besides being pan-genotypic, it did not need ribavirin addition for GT2 and 3. So we have now a lot of different possibilities, and this slide kind of shows that most of the trials have achieved very high sustained viral response, almost all above 90%. Now with the availability of pan-genotypic adjuvants with Maviret or Epclusa, the need for addition of RBV is getting less and less important. The rapidity of information is so fast that even this slide, almost a year old, I used to use in my clinical practice, is getting old. As you can see, in June 2021, the Maviret has been approved for more than 3 years old. But this slide may still help those who need a quick look at what are the possible options and what are the things they have to do before starting therapy and during monitoring of therapy. One of the biggest challenges still, even in the West, is the cost of these new medications. So here is a paper from Canada where they are showing with the modeling that it still justifies based on the cost, but argument is kind of weak because still the cost is in many thousands of dollars. So I feel the unmet need for hepatitis C, we have wonderful drugs, but there are, even with the new drugs, if they are proven to be effective, I doubt they would be cheaper. And we might have to use the same model we used for HIV, where the generics overtook the patent drugs, and some governments actually used to break the patent laws to allow generics to be manufactured. The other unmet needs which are not tested in the study so far is the role or how to handle hepatitis B or HIV co-infections, or if there are other risk factors that can affect the liver injury. I did find one paper from India where they used the same direct-acting antivirals in a very effective manner, good outcomes in patients with thalassemia major and iron overload in the liver. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful presentation on chronic hepatitis B and C.